Kia ora koutou, all of those of you who are tuning in to the recording of this first LNZ masterclass on humanising work in an age of AI, first one for 2024. Warm welcome. My name is Leanne Holdsworth, and I have the privilege of holding our space for the next couple of hours. And we'll hear a little bit at the end of our time today about the next upcoming masterclass for Leadership New Zealand. All right, I think that's all the logistics, team. Have I forgotten anything, Vicky, Sarah? Just jump in.
No, I don't think so.
All good from my side.
Everything's sorted. Yep,
That's
so just
good.
reminder the self-assessment's up if anyone needs it in chat to have a look at it before we do any work on it, that's all.
Fantastic. If you've only just recently arrived, there is a document. Sarah might repost it for those of you who have just arrived. It's a self-assessment. We won't need it for about another hour. Okay, so let's get into it. What are we up to today? We're trying to do two things here. We're creating an opportunity for some connection for us as the wider LNZ whānau. So we are going to make sure that we have time in breakouts for that sort of connection. Also, we will be spending time as advertised on together exploring this idea of humanising our workplaces, especially in an age of AI. Specifically, what we'll do over this 2 hours is we'll check in, and we'll do that in breakouts with 3 others. Then we'll talk about these two ideas. They're related and they're separate. So the two ideas of the evolving idea of human work and what it is and why we might care about it. And then AI and its impact on workplaces and how those two things come together. They're both big ideas. And so we will be then creating some space for us to do some sense making together in breakouts. Then we'll be talking about the how of humanising our workplaces, how we go about this, what I've learned from the book, from the research from the book, and we'll do a self-assessment about where we all are at individually. And then we'll in pairs, we'll share what we've been learning. And what we really want to have happen today is every one of you leave with an actionable, tangible thing that you can do, small nudge that you might make to try and humanise your workplace. And then finally, we will check out. Okay, so what I'd love to do now is give you an opportunity to think about, and this is how you're going to check in your breakout rooms, what you long for the humans in your workplace. So I want to just give you just a minute just to make some notes for yourself. And in about 45 seconds, Sarah is going to send you off into breakouts with another 2 people, and you'll have 10 minutes to share your thoughts about what you long for the humans in your workplaces. And then when you come back, we're going to ask for some themes. What were some common ideas that you heard in your trios? Let's get a little bit of an idea, because we're trying to get a bit of a sense of how much this connection is important compared to the content. How was that timing of 10 minutes? Could you have done with more, or was it about right? It was about right.
Counted about right. Yep.
Around about right? Okay, fantastic. There will be more chances. I certainly don't want to just be standing here in the pulpit. And there's so much wisdom in the room, right? So let's make sure we capture that. So what we'd love to get a bit of a sense of is what are the themes that you're hearing amongst the 3 of you in terms of what you long for our humans in our workplaces. Jump off mute, one of you from each group, or a few groups anyway, so that we've all got a sense of what, as a system, we're longing for. Don't be shy.
I'll go first.
Got on you, Lisa.
Kia ora all.
Kia
So
ora.
me and Ben were meeting together. Funnily enough, we're from the same company. So it was
Thanks,
really
Jane.
great. It was really great to connect on those thoughts. So we both were thinking we really want people to feel like they belong, and we want them to connect with each other, and we want them to feel like they've got room to be themselves so that they can be their best and grow into those things that they really aspire to be.
Oh,
Lovely.
I can just feel that in my system. Like, imagine that. Imagine if all our workplaces had that belonging, connection, room to be themselves and be their best. Thank you, Lisa and Ben. Can I just ask what organisation you're from? Do you mind?
We're
HG.
from Harris and Gresson.
Okay. Yeah. So Karen, not everybody always has their CEO on the same line.
Yes, so interestingly, our group talked about very similar things. So we want people to be able to bring their whole selves to work, that connection, and feel valued and feel like, they can come together and collaborate and connect and just be themselves. So similar themes.
Yeah, really similar themes. Probably just as well, eh? I mean, it would be a bit of a shame if across Harris and Grierson they were really different.
Well, I guess that's the organisation that we strive to be.
Yeah.
So that's what we strive for our own organisation.
Amazing. Thanks, Karen.
To add to the list of Harrison Grierson, what our group talked about was empowerment, feeling trusted, and supporting each other, complementing each other, celebrating the success together. Yeah, that's what our group talked about.
Yeah. Wow. I want to come work here. I'm just saying that because I'm in the Harrison Grierson building. Well, building, office. Great, thank you. Can we hear from someone outside of HG? What else do we hear? Thanks, Julie.
So we had myself, Benita, and Maka, and we were, I think, had themes of what we'd love to be provided for our organisations, for people to be psychologically safe, for there to be the resourcing to set up our growing, doubling in size workforces, going crazy hiring, to actually set up the systems and processes that take care of people so they can understand. I guess there wasn't a mention of belonging, but that's definitely part of it. It's about, for my part of it, was seeing the whole human, and the skill of humaning being just as recognised as technical skills.
Love it. Love it, Julie. And if I heard you right, there was making sure that the systems and processes were aligned to enable that humanness as well. Yeah.
I don't even know if it's aligned, just resource, just time and like an opportunity, instead of go, just get them on board, get more on board. That was like, Maka, I really resonated with you with that. That you just getting the space to understand that if you don't set those up, you will go slow.
Yeah.
You're trying to go fast, but you actually will end up just, hamstringing yourself.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Julie. We've got time to hear from one more person who would love to share the themes from their group. Go on, Mike.
I don't mind. Room 5. We actually talked about the same things, basically, creating a safe environment, and also one where people can achieve their potential. So expressing in a similar sort of way. We had a really interesting discussion around what that looks like in an AI sort of a world. So some of the themes around, the potential for bias in some of those models, and also, I guess, bringing people along the ride to see how AI can enhance their work environment and take the boring stuff away, as opposed to necessarily replacing people. So that's what we talked about.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks for bringing in the AI conversation as well. So what did we notice about those themes? Somebody just shout out. Like, what was the pattern that you noticed?
I think we were talking about a lot of the same sorts of things.
Right. You're
those
talking
two
about,
things, really.
talking
Yeah.
about a whole heap of the same things.
Mhm.
I spent 3 years researching for the book Human Work. We should have just had this 3 years ago and just got the answer. Right. Our ideas about what constitutes humanized work, humanizing workplaces, human work are similar.
Mm.
And so my real interest is in human workplaces. I'm much less interested in AI. But guess what? The genie's out of the bottle. You know, we are not in a position now to be able to put our head in the sand and say, oh, you know, AI will just be some sort of passing fad. It's here and it is already impacting on our workplaces. And so the reason why I'm so curious about the intersection between AI and humanizing workplaces is that if we want to be attentive to the ways in which we bring AI into our organizations, to see whether or not they're making our organizations and workplaces more human or less human. And I really believe that AI has the potential to make our organizations more human, and we have to be really vigilant and attentive because it could easily have the other effect. So talking about the way these things come together, Sarah, while you've been sharing into our space about what you longed for as themes, has been entering in those words into a particular AI tool, which plays music. And what you have all done creatively, I see you smiling, Richard Dent, is you have created the lyrics to a song that AI has just written for us. And Sarah is going to share her screen and play us a song that Suno.ai has just written for us about what we long for in our human workplaces. Whenever you're ready, Sarah, go ahead. And you're on mute if you're trying to.
I'm just taking myself off mute.
No problem. And why just while Sarah's doing that, why I was highlighting Richard Dent. Richard Dent is a very good friend of Leadership New Zealand and mine personally. And I was sharing with him this tool the other day and he said, oh, so exciting. I'm going to use it in a group that I'm doing this week. And I'm going to get them to make up a song. And I'm like, oh my God, that's such a great idea. So that's what we're doing today. Thank you, Richard. All right, Sarah, whenever you're ready.
In a world that's so divided and full of empty spaces, we search for something real in these unfamiliar places. But deep down we know we're all longing for more, a connection that's deep, a love we're fighting for. Come as you are, bring your whole self to the table. Belonging, connection, let's create something stable. We'll grow together into all that we aspire to be. Collaborating, celebrating in this sacred unity. We'll rise above the doubt and trust in the power we hold. Together we can conquer anything. Watch a story unfold.
Well, I'm just in the middle of loading up.
Oops, that's
a Zoom call, actually.
Nigel. Let me mute Nigel. So what do you think?
Weird and cringy?
Yes, completely.
Yeah. It's not getting to number one anytime soon, right? But
Right.
you can, the words are in there.
Well, I love weird and cringy, so guess what I'm doing for the
You
NZLP
do love weird and cringy, right? Dan's all about weird and cringy.
Thank you, Leanne. I've got a first tool for the first day on the NZLP program this
Oh,
year.
yeah.
I'll make it weird and cringy.
Weird and cringy, and you can thank Richard for that as well, Dan.
I could make you a song about that, Dan.
Oh, yes.
Ben, can I share what happened when I did this with this group a few days ago?
Please do, Richard.
What I did is I worked the name of their organisation into it, and then what they were doing, which is about multiculturalism, and they were so delighted that this song was about their organisation and their sense of belonging. That's us. We're about inclusion and diversity and all the other things that they were saying.
Amazing.
Great, Rick. Yep.
Fantastic. Okay, so if Sarah, you might put the link to that tool in the chat in case Dan needs it for next week or whenever the opening is, and anyone else who might want to use it. Yeah. Okay, so thanks, Sarah. Let's I said that there were these two ideas. One is human work and the other is AI, and they come together. And so I'm going to talk about the ideas separately and then bring them together. And so let's start firstly with the idea of human work. What I see, my first career was in sustainability, particularly in social sustainability. I see an evolution in the dialogue about the relationship between the human and the workplace, where 25 years ago, when I first started working in social sustainability, that was our language, that was our place of reference. And now what I'm seeing is the ideas moving more towards human sustainability. And then right at the edges, this idea of human work. Now, what do I mean by those three terms? Social sustainability tends to be in the space of stopping bad things from happening to people. Human sustainability is much, the focus is less on how much people benefit their workplaces and much more on how their workplaces benefit people. And you see what a massive shift that is towards the organisations having responsibility for benefiting people, rather than the old extractive model of how can we get the most out of our people. And to this idea of human work, of enabling good things to happen. So I see this journey of early adopters having these conversations about human work and enabling good things to happen and being quite edgy. And then, some of the slightly, human sustainability is still edgy, but then it's not the absolute early adopters. But I want to talk a bit more about this idea of human sustainability. And the reason I want to talk about it is if you are in a position yourselves where you're wanting to talk to the business case of humanizing your workplaces, if you're not fortunate enough to be in an organization with a CEO who really understands why this is important, or you're fighting with you are a CEO and you're fighting with the board in terms of why this is important. I use human sustainability a lot, and this definition of the degree to which the organisation creates value for people as human beings, leaving them with greater health and well-being. Can you see, like, greater health and well-being means more than when they started work, right? So we're actually adding to people's health and well-being. That is not the case in most workplaces where our levels of stress and mental well-being are under so much pressure. So greater health and well-being, stronger skills and greater employability. So paying attention to the changing skills required in an age of AI, good jobs, opportunities for advancement, progress towards equity, increased belonging, and a heightened sense of connection to purpose. This definition has come from the 2024 Deloitte Human Capital report. And I do believe, Sarah, you might have the link to that somewhere to pop into the chat for folk. This is Deloitte talking about a shift toward organizations that are creating value for human beings. This is very different than organizations that have well-being initiatives that tend to be one-off things like, yoga classes at lunchtime, kind of more bolt-on employee benefits. There's nothing wrong with those, but this human sustainability idea is talking about integrating into the DNA of an organization our care for people such that we leave them better off because of the work that they do here. Human work is human sustainability plus, right? So it's this idea that we're really focusing in human work on the space in between us. on the relationships that we have, on the systems that we have set up to enable the relatedness between us. Ultimately so, humans are good to each other at work, even when it's hard. And why I care about that, and why I love the idea of our organizations moving towards this space, is imagine if we did have all of our organizations in this place where humans are good to each other, what impact that might have when those human beings from our organizations go home at the end of the day. What sort of parents are they going to be? What sort of partners are they going to be? What sort of contributors to our communities are they going to be if they're in better shape when they leave work at the end of the day than when they started? And if they feel good about themselves and are have been fed by these ideas of belonging and relatedness and connection. And so I feel like organizations are an untapped resource for us, for all of us who care about social outcomes out there in the world, that actually, if all of our organizations were human workplaces, then we would have an increase in our social outcomes, because humans are better off from a well-being perspective and in better shape to be good parents and partners and contributing members of society. So I'm going to come back and talk about this a little bit more, but from the research in the book, of the Human Workbook, what we did is spoke to leaders all around the world, and we didn't come up with a nice 10-point checkpoint list about how to create a human workplace. Unsurprisingly, probably. I was a bit disappointed because I thought that would be a shorter book, but no, what we came up with was these leaders had these mindsets that enabled them to create the conditions for human workplaces. So these mindsets here will come back to towards the end of our time together, but it just gives you a little bit of an idea about where these leaders were thinking and helping us learn about creating human workplaces. So as a result of the research in the book, the human workplace is defined as one that supports everyone to be at their best, whatever that means for them, for the benefit of every aspect of their life. And I want to share a personal story here about the why. Sorry to put you on the spot, Richard, but Richard was part of the book writing team, and there was 10 people who contributed towards this book, Human Work. And Richard's contribution was in this domain of why do we care about human work? You can read his writing on this on humanworknetwork.com if you'd like to learn more about that. But I find myself talking about the business case for humanizing workplaces a lot, and it drives me crazy. Like, I know we have to talk about it, but at the end of the day, the personal bit about this is I spent years volunteering in domestic violence. I had the privilege of working as an overnight advocate for Shine in New Zealand. And what I got to see was that one experience of volunteering completely changed my view of life in every domain, because I had grown up in this bubble where all of my needs as a child were met. And it wasn't until I volunteered in domestic violence that I had night after night after night exposure to family situations where children's needs were not being met, physically, emotionally, psychologically. And so it was that experience that had me think, what is it that I can do in the world that might be able to nudge that in any way? And so why I really care about this and why I stand for a future of humanized workplaces is that in a small way, we might be able to nudge the experiences of our kids so that when we come home from work at the end of the day, we're able to be more present. We're able to meet their social, psychological, emotional needs better because of the workplace that we come from. So that's why I care about human work, but I am going to give you something that's a little bit more tangible than that, so that you can use it if you like. And these slides will be available, by the way, should that be useful, for a more governance-like convincing that you might need to do. So the answers to why human work exists in terms of the benefits to humans, organisations and society. From an individual perspective, we spend on average 81,000 hours over our lifetime at work. 81,000 hours over our lifetime at work. It's got to have an impact on who we are, how we show up outside of work. 29% of workers in the world are currently thriving. When we ask people what the top challenges are for them in their workplaces around human sustainability, from the Deloitte 2024 Global Human Capital Trends Research, what they heard was, the biggest worry is increasing work stress leading to worse mental health. Now, my job is to work with leaders in leadership development, and this resonates for me in terms of a growing level of stress that exists for the leaders that I work with. Added onto this idea of stress is a piece of research, again from the Deloitte report, which says that worker stress globally hit a high in 2021 and has just increased every year since then. So what are we doing about this idea of stress in the workplace? Because it's certainly not contributing towards having a more human workplace. Now you can see the other kind of concerns that we're thinking about here, AI taking over jobs, the new skills were required. So it's not just in the stress space. There's plenty that's getting in the way of human sustainability in workplaces. And so what do we know about what's getting in the way for the people in our workplaces to have a human workplace, as you defined earlier on, the longings that you had of belonging and values and being able to be themselves and connection? What's getting in the way for people? Do we actually know that in our workplaces? And in the Gallup poll, just for New Zealand and Australia, so this is a local statistic, 47% of our workforce experienced a lot of stress yesterday. Right, so we're not doing a great job about this. So there's plenty of reasons why human work is a good idea for individuals. For organisations, the business case is so obvious. There are stats, so many stats around what happens when you build the conditions for a human workplace around productivity, relationships, creativity, health, recruitment, engagement, retention, and yet we're not doing it. We're not doing it well. We've got these beautiful little pockets of inspiration, but there's so many gaps. It takes a shift in this legacy mindset that we have about people, but this extractive model of people being there to be used rather than us being able to contribute towards humans. 23% of the workforce in Australia and New Zealand are engaged. So we don't have to be rocket scientists to work out what that means in terms of all of those stats that we just saw: productivity, efficiency. 11% of us, I'll just go back, 11% of us are actively disengaged, and the rest of us are clocked out. Like, we're not engaged. We're not actively disengaged, but we're watching the clock. So this is just a massive waste of resource, and this idea of potential is just not being well used. Okay, this is the only graph that looks like a proper business graph in here, I promise you. But this is from the Oxford, the Oxford University's Wellbeing Research Centre. What they did is they set up a Wellbeing 100 virtual portfolio. And so these are the organisations that are performing most highly in wellbeing, right? And so you might be able to see that that top blue line is the, now my Zoom is over, what do you call it? Is the top 100. And the other lines underneath, which are really hard to see, are either the S&P 500, NASDAQ, or Dow Jones. They're all underneath this. What does that tell us? That these organisations that are investing heavily in wellbeing are outperforming the rest of the stock exchange. So if you need stats like this, use them. from a society perspective, this comes back to what I was saying before in terms of what would happen. What's the ripple effect of us creating organizations where people go home in good shape on our children, on our families, and on our communities? Okay, let's breathe. It's a lot to take in. And I said that I would talk in two parts. So one about this human work idea, and then two about the AI idea. So I want to say a couple of things about AI, and then I want us to be able to go into some breakouts and have some conversation to try and make sense of this intersection between humanizing work and AI. So what impact, if any, will AI make on humanizing our workplaces? I think there's so much wisdom in the room. I'm just going to stop sharing for a minute, and I'm going to call for that from you all. What do you already see that's making an impact on your organizations from an AI perspective? A couple of things were already mentioned earlier on. Yeah, Julie.
The time it takes to craft a stupid policy. Minutes, not hours. And then you have a draft within minutes, and you can have an email reply within seconds, and you're like, you sound really smart.
Great. So Julie, you're pointing to the efficiency that you can get from AI tools, right?
Correct.
Oh,
yeah.
Amazing. And Julie, what does that do and free you up for?
Thinking. Yeah, you can. Yeah, so I mean, it's all about asking good questions to the AI and having it be secure and all of that. But it's also gathering the wisdom of what's already there, which is what I was doing, Googling anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But thinking somebody must have thought about this, and there must be a way to put it into a good format that makes sense. So like harnessing the wisdom of the ages, and also getting ideas like from not what I would think. So it gives me a chance to just kind of gather what's out there that I hadn't thought of.
Okay, great. So there's efficiency, but there's also, you're pointing to, you're getting other perspectives or something as well. You're getting a broader range of things.
Yeah, I mean, I just used it today for, I'm switching from one tool to another in video calling.
Yeah.
And there's particular gotchas that I need to train the staff in. Like, they used to be able to record when they entered the meeting, they can't do that. And so there's this like, what's the list of this tool to that tool that I need to have, and create a training for me that has change management happen from this tool to this tool.
Amazing. Thank you, Julie. What are other people, what are you noticing in terms of how AI is changing things at work? Julie won't be the only one. Go ahead, Mike. I saw you. There's no hiding.
Sorry, I tried to unmute. Again, an efficiency one, but just automating manual tasks.
Yeah.
Like expense claims and boring stuff like that previously required greater effort. The other one that's not for my current workplace, but previous employment, making better decisions. So removing people's stereotypes and bias and so on, where there's a subjective decision making. So that's from a lending point of view. Yeah.
So you were using a tool that was real time checking people's bias in their communications and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So in the credit checking side of things, so assessing risk, but doing it. Well, I mean, again, models can have biases and so on, but but so can people. Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. I heard somebody say earlier on about this question of bias being baked in. I can't remember who that was. Somebody want to speak to that?
Can I talk to that?
Yeah.
It might have been part of that conversation that Mike had. It's something that I'm traveling with at the moment, so I don't have a firm answer on this.
Yep.
But the the wisdom I've been getting from various different camps, mostly in the minority space, is there's genuine concern that if we're looking at it from, say, screening tools perspective, it's about the quality of the data that goes into the tool in order to create it. And what that's doing, it's creating averages, which means that we're running a risk of pushing minorities' viewpoints and lensing to the sides and actually making a bigger problem than we've already trying to mitigate currently with equity lenses that we're applying through humans. So I'm coming to this from an HR lens, so that's where my consciousness is traveling on this. So
Thanks
I'm not an early adopter. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Any other perspectives on that?
And I would just comment that AI has a set of values that's been programmed into it by the people who wrote it in the first place that might not intersect with our values at all, and we might not even notice.
Yeah. Thanks, Richard. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of research about this as well. And of course, wherever the data comes from, wherever the data has been scraped from, bias exists, and some incredibly telling stories already about bias being baked into, what do you call it when people, parole systems, the racism baked into those. And the thing that makes me excited about this is there's a lot of airtime about this at the moment too. So I know a lot of work is happening in it. So I love, Mike, that you're raising it. And I love, Fiona, that you're raising the red flag as well. So it seems to me like we're in a situation where there's this healthy skepticism, right? So looking for these ways like Julie and Mike are just referring to in terms of being able to use AI for efficiency, and coming to it with some real thoughtfulness about what unintended consequences might happen. Yeah.
Leanne, it's Mark here.
Hey, Mark. Nice to hear from you.
I've got a bad connection, so hopefully you can hear me. But there was a fantastic interview on of the Ombudsman this morning around Oranga Tamariki and the bias of the practice of social workers influencing the information that was being given to judges to make family court rulings on. Absolutely, almost giving the court the decision they wanted because that was the information they provided. Really interesting. That's a report that came out yesterday. And so we take that bias and then we put some automation around it so that the system to enable those social workers is to do the process more efficiently, but in so doing, we promulgate the bias. So yeah, quite a very interesting and challenging social construct for New Zealand at the moment.
Amazing, Mark. If it's easy for you, it might not be because you haven't got a good connection. If you can find the link to that and put it in the chat, I think that would be super helpful for people. So,
okay.
And what other ways are we seeing AI impacting our workplaces already? Or concerns that we have about the way in which AI is impacting our workplaces? What else are people seeing?
Kia ora. I think that one of the big concerns is around data sovereignty and privacy. So I work in digital, so AI is a topic of everyday concern, and mostly from a fear perspective, even though ironically being in digital, we want to talk about the technology behind it, but the implications are huge, and we have to be really sensitive about, it's not just about what's going in, but where is that stored? And what are the individual's rights in that?
Yeah. Thank you, Corrine. Corrine?
Yeah, correct. Correct.
Fabulous, thanks. And it feels like we could have a whole space, like another 2 hours, just talking about the ethical issues, right, related to AI. And so if we're honing in on this idea of in our workplaces, like data privacy is as relevant as it is anywhere else. Thanks for bringing that up. Really appreciate it. So we're hearing, is there anyone else that's got a burning thing that they might like to bring into our shared space?
Yeah, I just wanted to share what Professor Noam Chomsky said, who's a world famous linguist and ethicist and so forth, he said that AI is going to be the greatest theft of intellectual property that humans have ever seen. That I'm quoting him.
Yeah, thank you. So, and we certainly have got camps, haven't we, in terms of people who are particularly concerned about the potential impact of AI and those who are just going ahead. What I think is curious is that we've got people who are founders in the AI movement who are trying to slow things down, who are concerned. Yeah. And we are the recipients of so much of the capitalist model that we have of it's being rolled out. And so I think is there anything else just before I jump ahead? Is there any other example of concern or where it's being used? So what gets my attention in particular is this intersection between AI and humanizing our workplaces. And how is it that we can be AI enabled and get these benefits that we've just been hearing about, efficiencies, automation, and yet not be caught up in the cost and the potential serious limitations of the kind of value sets that we're wanting to purport compared to what exist in the AI systems? So the question obviously is not, is it to AI or not AI? It's too late for that. The question is, how do we both embrace its strengths, but also double down on what is uniquely human? Because right now, it's the most uniquely human things that AI is not in a position to be able to do. So my proposition is that if we want human workplaces in the future, we're going to have to become masterful at holding that intention of doubling down on our human qualities whilst embracing our AI, right? Because it is those uniquely human things that AI right now can't do. The kind of things that I'm holding as the biggest questions, and I want you to be able to go off now and explore those for yourself, is what is uniquely human right now in our workplaces, and how do we continue to grow in those capabilities? And then the thing that I'm most interested in that is what opportunities are we providing for ourselves and our people to make sense together about AI? I just spent 2 weeks ago 4 days in Adelaide with a group of colleagues who are interested in humanising work and the intersection of AI, sense making about AI. It was an emotional roller coaster. We went down many, many rabbit holes. But what happened to me is I left with a much more integrated nervous system as a result of being able to share my sense making in good community. And I came to the conclusion that I will never, ever, ever be an expert on AI. I will never be across it, nor do I want to be. But what I do want to do is I want to know that the people that I'm working with, I can hold enough space for them as humans to be able to sense make in this space, to know enough, but to be able to hold ourselves together as community in this evolution. So what I would love now is for you to have some time together to do some of the sense making. And, you know, if you're anything like, well, I guess what I'm saying is I'm giving you a choice. What I would love you to explore is what is coming up for you as we explored the intersection between AI and humanity in our workplaces. Why I'm giving you a choice is I would love you to pay attention to that question and attend to each other's needs. If there's something else that's needed between the three of you, then attend to that. Sarah is going to take you into breakouts now, and you'll have 15 minutes to be able to work together to explore this idea What is coming up for you as we explore this intersection? Or whatever else you need. Sarah, how are you doing?
Good. I just had a quick question. If we're going to go into groups of 3 or was it 2?
Groups of 3 for this.
Perfect.
Yep.
Right.
Thanks, Sarah.
Transferring everyone over now.
Greg, I got your message. Thank you.
Did that
So
work?
lovely to see you. And go well.
Can you hear me?
Thanks. See ya. Bye.
Stay in touch, Greg. Is that you, Vicky, reminding me?
Who was that? Thank you.
No, it wasn't me.
Who was that?
It was me, Julie.
Oh,
Julie.
Julie, amazing. Sarah and Vicky and I had just been saying, oh my gosh, how are we going to
remember?
Hey, none of us did. And then Julie reminds us. Thanks, Julie. Okay. So there's no need for debrief, but I just want to see if there's anything that you would like to share from that conversation that feels like it might be helpful for others to hear, or just feels like it would just be, you'd like to get it off your chest. Anything that feels like it needs to be said from your conversations you just had.
So it's Mark again. I think there is a, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, good.
I think there's a concern, which is a social concern, that if we have another repetition of automation and efficiency, that the natural casualties of that in organisations are often those on the margins in the first place, the lower income brackets, the jobs that are manual that can be automated. And there's if you go to the health and well-being improvement on a daily basis, you are almost counter that if you haven't considered how you are going to retrain, recraft, develop skill sets, identify competency and opportunities for those people that are disaffected. So it's not doing the same with less, it's doing more with the same.
Amazing, Mark. So you're really pointing to this responsibility that organisations have, if they're humanising workplaces, to be thinking a lot about skill retraining in the face of AI. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark.
Not necessarily to work with the AI, but to, there's other deployment opportunities in large organisations that will be going down this path, and smaller ones that will get efficiencies from it, where they're able to increase capacity. But in a large organisation, it can't necessarily be about downsizing.
Yep. Thanks, Mark. Go on, Mike.
I totally agree with that. Like, and we're talking about AI today, but like any sort of change, right? Like we talked about the internet, but you could equally be talking about, cars replacing the horse and cart, or going from closed economies to kind of open trade trading economies where different sectors can't compete. It's really important to kind of think about the opportunity and think about the risk and bring the people along for the ride, because that change is often inevitable. And like Mark said, left unchecked, it can and will go badly for groups of people if it's not managed well.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So this issue of equality, and my real sense is that it's impacting, and it has the potential to impact on equality in ways that we haven't seen before as well. And I suppose I'm also thinking about those of us on this call have some curiosity about AI and the way that it's impacting on human work. But I mean, generationally, I know that my parents are not thinking about AI. Maybe that's fine. Maybe it doesn't matter. But actually, equality in terms of different generations being able to work with AI, like that's another level of inequality that may well just get bigger and bigger. On that note, Sarah, you've got a link there to Everyday AI. I'm just asking Sarah just to pop this into the chat. Everyone will have their source of where they get AI information from. I'm committed to not clogging up my brain with lots and lots and lots. And also, I really want to focus on the human work piece and less on the AI piece. And so I subscribe to this podcast, which is called Everyday AI Podcast from Jordan Wilson. And it is a 20-minute-ish daily podcast, which is a filter service, basically. It's like, okay, here's what's new, what's coming up. What was today's about? Oh, today's was fascinating, about a content producer. So I won't go into the details. But this is where I learned about Suno, and it's, I don't know, it's I can do it while I'm commuting, and because otherwise there is this kind of anxiety that sits behind me of, oh, it's really unhelpful, you know, like, am I falling behind or something in that domain? So for some reason, this kind of settles my system. So just sharing it in case it's of any use. And if you've got things that you listen to or resources that you find useful, please feel free to pop them in the chat so that the rest of us can share in those. Okay, so what I'd love you to do now is we will spend just a very, very, very short rundown on the human work idea, mindsets. This is where it gets personal, right? Personal for you. What is it that you can do in this space with the humans that work around you? So either pull out the PDF or open it on something, or if you don't have the PDF or you can't open it on something, then just open it on what Sarah has she? Will you just, Sarah, pop it into the chat again, open it up, and you can just draw some lines on a piece of paper, right? Thank you so much for the resource. Academy EX quarterly briefings. Amazing. Thank you. Fantastic. All right. We've got people coming, right, good. Amazing. All right, so I'm going to do about 7 minutes of walking through these mindsets. And what I'm going to do very, very quickly is explain the mindset. And then what I want you to do on your self-assessment is mark yourself on that self-assessment where you personally think you are in relation to this mindset. Because what I'd love you to do is leave today with a small nudge, some little move that you can make that will make your workplaces more human. Okay, so the relationship between human work, which is what we're going to talk about, and what we've just been talking about with AI, is that it is a model that has been designed by, designed, I don't think that's the right word, but pulled together in order to be able to help build our our unique human competencies. Right, like the importance of being able to build on the things that is unique to us right now, our depth of communication, our empathy, our ability to be compassionate, our ability to hold multiple perspectives, the things that are uniquely human. That's what we're trying to do in human work, build our capabilities in that space. Because we've got AI that can do so much of the technical things that we have become experts in being able to do. So what's the bit that we can get better at, or we can continue to build and grow in that's uniquely human? So the human work model is designed to help us do that, but also to build the cultural containers of our organization to help us hold our humanness in the face of AI. So, let's just quickly go through these mindsets. So we'll start with the mindset of learning and growth. So you'll see that these mindsets are very personalized. They're about how can I make a difference, as well as how can the leadership team make a difference, right? And so when we're talking about learning and growth, we're actually talking about the idea of, rather than filling up our glass with more content, more technical skills, we're talking about growing the glass or making it bigger to enable our sense making to become more sophisticated, for us to be able to hold more complexity, the way we make sense of things, that we build our container out like that. This developmental type of growth is what we heard from leaders when they were talking about a mindset of learning and growth. So they end up moving from not only building the content in the glass, but making the glass bigger, and the glass being a metaphor for themselves. And we've got a quote up here by Robert Keegan and Lisa Leahy from In Everyone Culture, which kind of identifies, I think, why this came up so much in the research. In most organizations, nearly everyone is doing a second job no one's paying them for, namely covering their weaknesses, trying to look their best, and managing other people's impressions of them. There may be no greater waste of a company's resources, and the ultimate cost, neither the organization nor its people are able to realize their full potential. So this learning and growth mindset is about creating organizations where it's safe to learn, where you can walk into organizations and have conversations with people about what's at their learning edge. Right, so the kind of helpful moves here is make your own growth edge more visible, talk about it, like have those vulnerable conversations about, actually, I'm right up against what I know how to do here. I'm not really sure how to move forward. I'm not really sure how to make this decision. Create the conditions for other people to feel safe, to continue to grow, to develop. So they're the kind of helpful moves in that space. So can you just mark on your self-assessment, sorry, I'm going so fast, where you think you are in this learning and growth mindset? The second mindset that we heard from about how leaders are humanizing workplaces is this one about everyone as a leader. So moving away from this old-fashioned model of hierarchical leadership to much more distributed leadership. This idea that everyone can be a leader. And how do I create the conditions in my organizations for everyone to lead? And so the kind of helpful questions here are like, how can I create more responsible freedom for those around me? Responsible freedom being giving people as much freedom as they need with enough boundary so that it's safe for them. And are there places I'm really trying to hone in on my control and where that's really trapping me? And so some helpful moves is look for more, create more agencies, and notice when you tend to hold on to this power when it's not necessary. So can you just mark on your self-assessment where you think you are for that? And the third mindset was that of belonging. So leaders talked here about, just like you did, the critical nature of belonging in organizations. And the kind of moves that you can make here are actually authentic moves in this direction of diversity and inclusion, rather than checkbox moves. Ensuring that people really feel seen when you're communicating with them. When you're in the company of people who really prioritize seeing you, how that makes you feel as a belonging move. And are there any tiny things that you do every day that potentially could end up excluding people without you even meaning them to? So just mark on your assessment where you think you are in the belonging mindset. And now here's my favorite mindset. I didn't make it up. Leaders talked about it in the book. Love and care. So this mindset was talked about by a number of the leaders in terms of thinking about people that they love, their children, their partners, their brothers and sisters, their parents, their good friends, and how they want one of those people to be treated at work. Now, not the specific, reward and recognition systems, not that, but actually as a human being, how they want the people that they love to be treated. And actually offering themselves a challenge. Can I treat the person in front of me in a way that I want somebody to be treated that I love? Many of the leaders talked about, despite their leadership positions, how uncomfortable the business community is still about talking about the words love and care, And yet we're all humans relying on each other, and love and care is a natural human state. And so they're really bravely talking about love and care publicly, and creating as many moves as they can to normalize this language, as many people do in this community, I know. So why don't you just mark on your self-assessment where you think you are with love and care, and then we've just got one more mindset to look at, and that's human systems. So it's all very well talking about how we are with each other, but if that's all we do, if we don't also look at our systems, and I think somebody, was it you, Julie, talked about systems earlier on today, this idea of we've got to have systems that are human systems. We can't just be good to each other and then put systems in place that get in the way of our trust or make our jobs difficult for each other. So paying attention to the systems. And it's not just systems that work for humans, it's understanding this idea of complexity. Complexity is this idea that where we can easily have design systems as if they're for the predictable world, but we live in the unpredictable world a lot of the time. So if we can understand the complex nature of ambiguity, what sort of systems would we have? And what sort of systems will we design if we wanted to create more trust in our organisations? So mark on your assessment sheet where you think you are in relation to that. You'll see that there's the next one is in relation to listening to learn. And what we need to do, Vicky and Sarah, is create some more masterclasses so that we've got time to do some more of that. Love to do some of that work, but we're not covering that today. But you can imagine what listening to learn is compared to listening to fix or listening to win or something. You might want to mark yourself on that self-assessment there. But next time we might talk about it some more. And then there's the last two. How important is human workplaces to you, and your experience of creating human workplaces? And what we're going to do now is just pop you into pairs for about 8 minutes. Thank you, Sarah. And what we want you to share in your pairs is something that you notice about your self-assessment. Share that with the other person. And also, given what you've noticed, what's a small nudge that you could make in your system that might humanize your workplace a tiny bit more? So just 8 minutes, Sarah. Any questions about that before we? Nope. Amazing. Thank you, Sarah. See you in 8 minutes. Okay. It's like my biggest achievement of the day. Welcome back, everyone. So people have just been in breakouts exploring a small move they might make and something that they might have learned from their self-assessment. And so I'd just love to hear from a couple of you of any moves that you heard from the other person that you were talking to that seem like they're pinch that you want to put into the room because somebody else might like to actually do that small move. What did you hear that felt like a good idea? Come on. Don't tell me there weren't any. Don't believe it. Not from this group.
I don't know about a move.
Yeah.
I don't know if I got my camera on.
You've got your camera on.
I have. Oh,
yep.
That's nice. Before I spoke, I don't know if it's about a move, but I just made an observation around the learning and growth, and I said to Richard that my own experience really recently of kind of making my own growth edges more visible was that clearly organizationally that isn't something people must do very often, and it was taken as, oh, congratulations you for making yourself a little vulnerable, and that was really amazing. And I was like, it's just me. But I think in terms of what could be, a nudge within the system is actually to actually call that out a little bit more. and to actually be really overt about the ability to make your learning edges more visible. Because there is a tendency sometimes for people to hold up their leaders and just have an expectation that they just are going to know what to do or know the right way to do things. And yeah, just bringing a little bit more humanity, but I think maybe just being a little bit louder about the need to do that.
I love that so much, Lisa. Thanks for bringing that into the room. Yeah, I mean, imagine if we all did that. Like, organizations are just made up of people like us, right?
Yeah, yeah. Cool.
Amazing. Okay, fantastic. So let's just recap where we've been. What have we done today? We've had some space and time to connect with each other. We've talked about this couple of ideas of the evolving idea of human work. We've talked about the impact of AI on that. We've had some time together to sense make that a little, and we might be left thinking we need more sense making time or less. We've talked a little bit about some of the small moves that you can make to support humanizing your workplace. I think the last thing that I will leave you with is there is a whole organizational self-assessment on the website. Let me see. What did I just do? My goodness, only knows what I'm doing now. Lucky it's at the end. Okay, at the bottom there's a link to a organizational self-assessment. If you're curious about being able to run an assessment through your organization, it's free. Feel free to use that.
I've just put that in the chat.
Vera, amazing. You're so onto it. Thank you so much. Okay, any questions before I hand over to Mark Dunlop, the Executive Chair of Leadership New Zealand, to close us out? We've got a couple of minutes. Is there any particular question that we're sitting on as we close? Concern?
Not so much a question, Leanne, just it's been awesome. It's been an awesome session. There's a lot more to learn in that space for the way that we show up. Like, I found it really interesting, and the couple of conversations I've had within the breakout room where you could go on for hours with this.
Right.
Yeah. So I look forward to more of that. And yeah, I just want to acknowledge you and your team for putting on this. It's awesome. And also want to acknowledge the class of 2022. Like, there's a lot of you on the screen. I'm like, wow, how cool is that? They call themselves the best year ever, but that's you know, I'd say 2019 was the best year ever.
Oh, and so the competition begins.
Yeah, absolutely.
The in-house Leadership New Zealand competition. What was the best NZRP year? Okay, good. Thanks, Dan. Any other final comments before I pass over to Mark?
Just a reminder, sorry, Mark's probably going to cover this, that the last call for our leadership program applications are finishing up in the next few days. We're pulling the cohort together, so just please, if you're thinking about putting yourself or somebody in your organisation through, please reach out. We'd love to have your application.
Thanks, Vicky. Thank you, Mark.
Okay. I haven't got my camera on because I'm in a remote office, and I think it's 3G at the best. So when I turn my camera on, you can't hear me. So I'll give you a picture, and then I will close the picture down again. I'll be able to talk. If it behaves itself. No, it's not going to even let me start the video. Here we go. So that's me. And
yeah, right, we can't hear you.
Now you're muted, Mark. You're muted, but we can still see you.
You can't hear me now.
That's perfect.
You can't hear me now. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you. Look, I worked in a leadership space and in change and human resource management for a number of years. And one of the things that that came through early for me in this conversation was the notion of confirmation bias and stringing it through to bias that comes through in some of the AI assumptions, reinforced by my hearing my friend Peter talking this morning as the ombudsman. And so it's just that mindfulness around that as we're looking at the AI implications on humanising our workplace. I agree with Leanne that it's not the AI that I'm worried about, it's actually the human consequence of that, and how can we in our spaces take that ownership. So for me, the thing that I reflect on are our human uniqueness. The decision in talking to one of the breakout groups, just talking about the day that AI is making all the decisions for us is the day we lose the human value of that intellectual capacity to make decisions with judgment around the unintended consequences and the wider reaches and second, third order effects that not necessarily going to be included in a data-driven analysis that's automated on behalf. So that's pretty important to me, I think. My major lesson when I did my self-analysis, Vicky will laugh, but you can guess what it's going to be. I'm pretty much on the right for most of those things, except in the space of listening. Sarah's got a grin as well, so that's good. But I think for me and from the lessons from today, it's listening to learn, and then it's making it safe to learn. And I've been given a book that's really helping with that. And then it's taking that lesson and that self-listening and listening to the author and then making a new edge. It's that edge making where you step into that element of uncertainty that opens you up to being vulnerable and authentic and genuine, but looking to be in the leadership capacity, providing that opportunity for others as well. And I think that's a huge insight for me from this couple of hours. I was able to get away from work on time and be here at 3, so it was fantastic. And I love the expression to nudge. I think that's really important. Find those different opportunities where we can nudge the difference. And I think my saying at either most of my courses is be the difference you want to be in the world. Don't wait for it to happen. Make those choices and choose to do one thing different today than you've done it in the past, and difference will come. It's not everybody else necessarily. It's up to all of us collectively making small steps. And I think that's a really important thing. I'd like to close with a brief karakia. Let's just grab a second before we do that. Unuhuia, unuhuia, unuhuia ki te uruta unui, ki a wātea ki a mama te naka. I nana ti wairua e te ara takata. Ko ia rāre ronga, whakaaarea, ake ki runga, kia tina, huire, taiki. Thank you.
I would like to acknowledge what Leanne has done for us, and her taking up the mantle to do this for Leadership New Zealand and for the wider community. So I just want to thank you so much for that, and to the LNZ team. Sarah has come on board and just done a miracle, and she's really valued already in the team. So thank you so much for that too. And thank you for everyone arriving and doing this with us. We deeply appreciate it. And there'll be more. We have another one planned in April. So please keep an eye out, and we'll send you notes about that. So yeah, thank you again. Thank you so much, Leanne.
Thanks, Vicky. I might just add to that. Kia ora, everyone. I just thought I would just say, For the next one, we will be sending out an invitation, and you will all get the first invitation, of course, given that you've been in this first one. But for those who are alumni and are connected with your cohorts, please do share this with your groups. We are trying to connect out to our incredible alumni and our network, and you know, obviously sometimes not everyone has the most up-to-date details. So if you are connected, we'd really appreciate any help in getting the word out there. That would love to see their faces on the screen. So, kia ora everyone. Thank you.